Chapter 312, A Failed Disguise. When Derek finished, Klein manipulated the world to nod and say, "More detailed than I thought. Transaction complete." Before the world finished his sentence, Klein had simultaneously removed the barriers insulating Justice, the Hanged Man, and the Magician. After a few seconds of silence, the world looked around and said with a dark smile, "I don't have any more requests for now." Having a rough understanding of the process and its characteristics, Furs was eager to purchase the corresponding sequence, 8 Trickmaster, of the Apprentice sequence. She clearly remembered that Mr. Fool had said that the reason she was troubled by the full moon was due to her low natural order of life, and that the pain would decrease with the rise of her sequence. This made Furs eager to obtain the next formula. However, it would expose the Beyonder pathway from when everyone becomes familiar with each other and knows more about each other. Exposure will become less of a serious matter. However, for the next few gatherings, I have to conceal that so that the members of the gathering won't be able to identify the real me. After thinking rather calmly for a moment, Furs said, "I wish to obtain the formula of Apothecary and Trickmaster. I will pay in cash." She intentionally added the Apothecary formula to her actual request in order to cause the others to have a misinterpretation. If any member of the gathering really had the formula, she would still take it. She could then sell it at a higher price to Viscount Glaint, who'd been longing for this formula for a long time. In any case, she definitely wouldn't suffer a loss because of this and might even make a huge profit. As for money, Furs wasn't short of it for the time being. Not only were the royalties of her best-selling book entering into her account over time, it was accumulating to quite a sizable amount. Furthermore, she also had additional income streams, such as the £650 she had received from Miss Audrey in the Colongos and Intis Ambassador Bakerland cases. Poor Jean, she spent more than £200 to compensate the families of the 2 deceased which were involved in the Lanavis case. I wonder if Miss Audrey would pay her when things clear up. The note with Mr. Fool's honorary name on it was found in the bookcase of Viscount Glaint's house. Could it be that one of his ancestors was a member of this gathering? Is this a gathering that has been held regularly for decades, if not centuries? For's thoughts were suddenly a little distracted. Only 2 seats away from her, Justice Audrey was a little stunned when she heard For's request for the Apothecary and Trickmaster formulas before she accurately grasped For's thoughts. She's Furs. The Trickmaster is for herself, and the Apothecary formula is to be sold to Glaint. She can also do this to complicate the situation and fool the others. Audrey nodded indiscernibly and was more certain of the Magician's identity. She's not of a very high sequence, at best 8, most likely 9. Who knows where Mr. Fool pulled her from, or if she's from a special place. Her accent has the peculiarities of Backland, but she's not necessarily in Backland. The Hanged Man Alger was also observing the newcomer, making sure that she wasn't a threat to him. The son Derek didn't think too much about it. He was just trying to guess whether Miss Magician belonged to the City of Silver, or if she was from the world where Miss Justice and the others lived. Klein cast a look of pity at Miss Magician, not expecting much from her attempt to conceal her identity. When you meet a telepathist who is very familiar with you, you might not be able to conceal your true thoughts even if you know the other party's ability beforehand and are on guard against it. What's more, you didn't even know anything. The fool, Klein, sighed in his heart for Miss Magician. At the same time, he controlled the world, who said hoarsely, "I have the Apothecary formula, £230. As for the Trickmaster formula, I'll do my best to find it, but I can't guarantee success." There was no contradiction between exchanging the Apothecary formula for money and using it to groom a useful helper. They could be run in conjunction, so Klein made the world speak first so as not to be intercepted by the Hanged Man or the sun. As for the formula for Trickmaster, he only had some ideas. From his point of view, the mystical item, Master Key, was most likely related to the corresponding sequence of Trickmaster's corresponding sequence 9, Apprentice. If he were able to divine its origins above the gray fog, he might be able to find some clues. Well, actually the most convenient way is to ask the existence suspected to be Mr. Door who keeps murmuring during a full moon. In addition to asking for help, he probably provides formulas and the acting method so as to make the target stronger and complete difficult tasks. Unfortunately, before the target is strong, they can't even hear his ravings. They will break down and even be close to losing control. This results in a vicious cycle, Klein lamented. Instead of responding to Mr. World's words, Furs looked around and saw that the hanged man, Justice, and the sun had no intention of opening their mouths. It was obvious that they didn't know the apothecary and Trickmaster formulas. Mr. World, please try your best to find the Trickmaster formula as soon as possible. Furs fell silent for a few seconds before saying, As for the apothecary formula, I plan to buy it now. How should I make the payment? The other party seemed to be a man from loan as well, and is willing to accept gold pounds. But the gold pound has always been more recognized than the other currencies. As she spoke, Furs was also trying to determine the world's background. The world completely didn't mind her sizing him up, as he said softly, You can sacrifice the money to Mr. Fool after you return. That way, the transaction will be closed. The exact sacrificial ritual is sacrifice. Mr. Fool can still accept sacrifices. His life's natural order has reached such a level. No wonder he used that tone to describe the owner of the ravings. During the full moon, Furs listened and remembered, surprised and shocked, but she also felt that it was a matter of course. After finishing his description, Klein displayed the apothecary formula in front of the world and had the fake person handed to Miss Magician. The transaction is witnessed by Mr. Fool, so you don't have to worry if it's fake. I trust Mr. Fool. Furs nodded immediately. She spread open the formula and began memorizing it seriously. At that moment, Audrey, who couldn't bear to see her friend go through such labor, commented, You can seek Mr. Fool's help during the sacrifice to recall the formula. You don't have to memorize it specially. If you encounter any problems, you can also pray to him by reciting his honorable name. Him. Miss Justice is actually using a salutation used to describe deities to address Mr. Fool. Him. Could it be that he is really a he? But why would he be willing to help us in doing such trivial matters? That's not right. As long as the ritualistic magic is done right, the 7 Orthodox gods will also often respond to their believers and complete their requests. First said to Justice, Thank you for telling me that. Your name is just like your character. Audrey suddenly felt a little guilty. She suddenly seemed to recall a problem as she hurriedly asked, Miss Magician, do you know of the acting method? Acting method? Furs looked at Justice in a daze. She soon discovered that the other members, such as the sun and the hanged man, had no additional reaction to the term. Clearly, they knew what it meant. Today's gathering makes me feel like a country bumpkin who has just arrived in Backland. I've been to so many Beyonder gatherings, at the very least. All right. First thought, half sorrowfully, half joyously. She couldn't help but want to write a novel with this feeling of hers, naming it Miss Wall's Tour of Dreamland. You don't seem to know. Audrey made a definite judgment based on force reaction and her usual performance. She turned around and looked at the person shrouded in gray fog at the end of the long table. Mr. Fool, can I teach the acting method to Miss Magician? If so, what price would she have to pay? Audrey had intended to ask directly if it was like before trading the information for entries of Roselle's diary. However, she quickly remembered that there was a great overlap between the Beyonder circles of Furs and her own. Therefore, if she did that, she might lose many opportunities of obtaining Roselle's diary. It's not a very important problem, since it's just a matter of time before Furs realizes that Mr. Fool wants Roselle's diary, and I would certainly have other Beyonder circles. However, she knows that I have a few pages of Roselle's diary, and if she wants to collect them, she will come to me immediately. However, Mr. Fool has read all of those diary entries after this gathering. I have to find a chance to tell Furs that all the Roselle diary pages were accidentally lost. Audrey predicted the chain of events and tried her best to convey her concerns to Mr. Fool in body language. What's Miss Justice hinting at? Oh, she knows Furs, but she doesn't want to reveal her identity, which means that she doesn't want the payment I request to cause any trouble in that regard. Klein thoughtfully chuckled. You can make the decision. You can do the explanation, since I do not wish to repeat what I've said in the past. This is also a form of respect to the goddess, he added inwardly. Praise Mr. Fool. Audrey's heart leaped in joy. She straightened her back and slightly raised her chin. She tried to look at Furs in a different manner as she said, the acting method is a method to speed up the mastery of potions and minimize the risk of losing control. Do you want to know about it? There's such a method. For real, Mr. Fool is such a lofty figure, so he definitely wouldn't lie about such a small matter. Furs widened her somewhat languid eyes, pursed his lips, and said, yes. As long as one was a Beyonder, there was no way they wouldn't wish to learn of similar methods. Furs suddenly felt thrilled. Audrey thought carefully and said, there are two requirements. 1. Without the permission of Mr. Fool, you are not to teach the acting method to others. The second is to pay £200. Her original plan was to use Roselle's diary as a benchmark for the price. The number of pages she and the hangman had used to repay the debt had been converted into a corresponding price. But in reality, Roselle's diary was sold cheaply because it couldn't be deciphered. And most of the time, it was impossible to determine which was a real one. Converting that to a total price was quite a letdown to the value of the acting method. Therefore, she added a little more from that benchmark. If Mr. Fool's adorer is no longer short of money, then I will take the £200, and I will look for the diary entries to repay my debt with Mr. Fool. Audrey had already thought of a follow-up deal. £200. The method to reduce the risk of losing control is £200. That's way too cheap, isn't it? Fearing that Justice would go back on her word, the surprised and happy Furs said without hesitation, deal. After she finished speaking, she felt her heart pain for the money. She felt that her bank balance was decreasing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye.